Thank you for purchasing the SmartKit. This is the disassembly teardown video for the Galaxy Note 2. We start by prying off the back cover, like that. Comes right off. Remove the battery. Remove the stylus. Remove the SIM card and the micro SD card if you have one. They're spring loaded, so you just have to push on them and they pop out. The next step is to remove each of the 11 screws that hold down this back plate mid-frame. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I like to keep all the screws that I removed during the disassembly and repair in this back cover so I don't lose them. So I've removed all 11 screws from the back plate middle frame. At this point we have to remove this back plate, and to do so we need to use our fingernail to wedge it into the gap between the LCD and the middle frame. Just work our way all the way around the middle frame. It'll take a little bit of time. If you don't have fingernails or if you have acrylics or whatnot, you can just use your nails in the beginning to open that wedge and then use a credit card to work your way around. Guitar picks work well as well if you have one. Eventually, once you snap everything off, the middle frame should come off just like that. Set that aside. So now we have to remove all the flex cables and the screws and antennas that hold down this motherboard. There's no technical order you need to do this in, but let's start with this component here, which is the speaker module. There's one screw that holds down the speaker module. You have to remove that. And let's compare this screw with one of the 11 screws that we removed from the back housing. So as you can see, the screw we just removed from the speaker module is shorter than that of the back plate. So the reason I say this is so you can just mix them all together here, as long as you know that the screws we removed from the speaker module, the screws we removed from the front facing camera and the headphone jack, they're all going to be short. So you have 3 short screws. You can use those either here, or down in the speaker. And the long screws are all for securing the back plate. So we go back to the speaker module here and just comes off like that. The next step would be to disconnect this antenna very carefully so that we don't break the connector that is connected to. Just use your fingernail to pop it off like that. Then we disconnect this flex cable right here, like that, and then we use our heat gun or blow dryer to heat this component up right here so we can soften up the glue that secures this down to the assembly. That's what I'm going to do right now. One thing I forgot to mention is that to make sure that this antenna is out of the way because it's very sensitive to heat. It's really thin, made out of plastic, so be very careful. You don't apply too much heat to that. So I've heated this up, and I'm going to use my pry tool to remove the charging port flex. It's pretty effortless once you heat it up. So at this point, we're going to go ahead and disconnect all the miscellaneous flex cables. We start with this one. Then we work our way up to this one. Disconnect that. Then we have to remove the flex cable for the LCD. Then we have to disconnect the flex cable for the headphone jack. Next flex cable we disconnect is the one for the ear speaker and proximity sensor, like so. Next we disconnect one of the grounding flex cables for the LCD. Then we have to disconnect the flex cable for the power button. Okay, so now that we've disconnected all of the flex cables, the next step is to remove the single screw that secures the motherboard, and that is this small black screw. Again, it's the only black screw that we're going to remove in the entire repair, so again, you can mix it with the rest of the screws as long as you remember that that's where it goes. And then I'll remind you again in the reassembly video. So at this point, just make sure that all the flex cables are all bent back and out of the way. They're not going to snag onto the motherboard. Very carefully lift up the motherboard like so and set it aside. Also make sure to remove this antenna. Now you have to remove these components at the top so that the UV glue doesn't, once it expands, it doesn't get into them and clog them. So let's start by removing the screw for the headphone jack. The headphone jack just comes up like that. It's connected to the ear speaker, so be careful. There's a flex cable that connects the two. Next we have to remove the screw that holds down the shield that covers the front-facing camera and proximity sensor. And this shield just comes off like that. Very gently remove the component that the front-facing camera and proximity sensor are attached to. Alright, that's the entire disassembly process. The next step is to remove the broken glass and apply the new one. Thanks for watching.